All right, welcome. I'm going to talk about one of the WPJ practice exams. That's about the Throwaway Society, and I think I'll start playing this. And you can see that this was once a cutting board, so instead of having it being thrown away, I turned it into a flute. And along the same lines, I picked up from the thrift store a bunch of Jenga blocks, which I've glued together and created another flute. But I don't have the holes in that one yet. So, just trying to give you some idea of what you can do out there to fight the Throwaway Society. And so let's talk about the Throwaway Society. I'm going to read the instructions here. Several significant issues could emerge from the following texts. Please read the texts and write an essay in which you not only identify one significant issue, but also take a position on that issue. Use information from at least 3 of the texts provided, as well as your own experience to support your position. And the first item was on Waste Not, Want Not, Sweden to give tax breaks for repairs from The Guardian in 2016. The second one was a comic by Russell Myers called Melvin's Throw It Away and Buy a New One Shop. And then the third one was The Countries Winning the Recycling Race, which was compiled from the Statista.com site. And then the fourth item was America the Wasteful, a detailed look into our Throwaway Society by Rachel Tulipiano. So I think the first thing you probably have to do is come up with some sort of thesis statement that it's something that you can agree with or disagree with and take a position on. I've come up with a couple that I might suggest for how you could do this. The first one says mass overconsumption has led to negative environmental consequences that need to be reversed. Okay, so there's your position that overconsumption has led to these negative environmental consequences, and the position is that that process needs to be reversed. And so, in order to support a thesis like that, you could use the first article by Richard Orange on the Swedish proposal to give tax breaks to people who get their appliances and other things fixed. You could use that to recognize that you don't have to go out and buy a new one, you just have to go and fix the one you have, and that can be a good way to fight the negative environmental impacts of that. The throw it away and buy a new one, that's kind of hearkening back to that comment could be used. I think that's pretty understandable. That big bin of television sets that are sitting in the other panel certainly suggests that we are probably overconsuming, particularly in the area of electronics. And I know in this particular essay a lot of people like to use electronics as their own examples. Everybody probably knows a person that has had one too many iPhones, one too many monitors, or what have you. A lot of computers, for that matter, laptops are being not recycled, but used up and thrown away pretty readily at this point in time. I think I've probably gone through 3 or 4 of them myself. Some of them, due to the electronics, they don't last very long. Anyway, so all of those items could be used then. The important thing I want to point out, and I'll probably say this on a lot of people's essays, is once you have made your comment on the Richard Orange article or the Rachel Tulipiano article where she talks about super capitalism, right? You want to then take the language of your thesis. So in this case, mass overconsumption has led to negative environmental consequences. Come back and touch on the specific language within that thesis, right, after you have addressed your particular topic, with respect to the evidence that you're going to be using, whether it's, the Orange article, Tulipiano, the comic, or the graph on recycling leaders in the world. Okay, So that's how I would do, that's how one, paper could go. As you remember, you always need to come back and hit that language in the thesis. If there's nothing else that you learn from this class at all, I think that one key thing is if you keep coming back and hitting your thesis, it'll lend a lot more coherence to your papers as you move forward, and it'll be really helpful because it will signal to whoever is reading it, a professor, a graduate student, that hey, this is my point, and I'm reiterating that at the end of it after I've introduced the evidence to illustrate my point. Okay, you're not just leaving the reader hanging there at the end of your example paragraph to question what point it is that you're trying to illustrate. So that's one kind of paper that you could write. The other one is kind of more of a political one that people like to use, and that it's social policies to curb consumption need to be put in place. And there you probably focus more specifically on the Richard Orange article where it talks about that, tax relief with, for people who get their appliances and other items fixed, where they can write off half the cost of that in their taxes, and so they get some tax relief. So I think that's certainly an article that you could talk about there. Maybe something if you have a knowledge of particular social policies that exist to help increase kind of green energies, for example. We hear a lot about that moving forward in this country. The move from fossil fuel consumption to other kinds of consumption, electric cars, the whole cafe industry standards with respect to cars could possibly be something that you could talk about. Might be useful in ensuring that social policies are put in place so that we're not, consuming more and more things instead of using up what we have. So in any case, I think you could. The second one's probably a little harder because it's harder to get all of the other three pieces of text to relate specifically back to social policies. But I think you could probably do it with a little bit of creativity if you, for example, talked about incentives for recycling in this country or in other countries. There would be a kind of social policy that would be, recommending, that we try to put in place policies that reduce consumption or use other items that have already been consumed. And then of course, anything that has to deal with the Tulipano article that might curb consumption. You could even potentially think about what would happen if it's not really good evidence because you're not talking about something that did happen. You're just hypothesizing about what might happen. But what would happen, you think, if people put Sweden's policy, that Swedish policy, into effect in the United States? Some people like to go and start to, really look at that policy in depth in terms of how it might work in the United States. And some people are skeptical of it, so you could possibly take the other side, right? Say social policies to curb consumption can't be put in place because they won't work, or something like that, if you wanted to be, contrary to where these articles are coming from. You could go in that direction as well. The important thing is here for all these WPJs is you get a statement, right, that can be either agreed with or disagreed with, and that you go then to on to establish your position with respect to agreement or disagreement on this particular statement, And then, take these pieces of information, these articles, this piece of evidence, and fold them into your essay. And always when you're doing that, once you have introduced them, step back out and comment on how that evidence is relating to this point and this point. If you can do that with at least two, you almost assuredly will pass. 3 is the optimal, right? So, and you could do 2 from the essay prompt and maybe a third example from your own life. That's perfectly fine as well. But if you hit 2, and you're able to use two pieces of evidence, relate them back to your position in your thesis, there's just no way you can fail. You'll be fine. Okay? So that's how that works. That's all for right now, and we'll hopefully talk to you about the next one. Take care. Bye.